For those who competed decades ago, speeding down highways, through towns, country roads. For those who sat watching on the sides of the street, who found solace in chaos and thunderous speed. Even for those who grew up without the sights and the sounds, and lived without race cars shaking the ground. Who don't understand why racing appeals to our fascination, wonder, and the way that we feel. A purpose-built place to camp and spend time with friends, watching racing together until darkness descends. Though no longer do the streets rumble and roar, there's a place just for this, a park to explore.
A road racing circuit before the assault. The 4 twisting, beautiful miles at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. For 6 brutal, ear-shattering hours, its serenity will be violated by the raw power of screaming racing machines. It's the famed end-of-season endurance classic, the Road America 500. The specially constructed race circuit at Elkhart Lake at normal speed is a scenic 4-mile drive through fall-tinted Wisconsin countryside.
Hidden by forests near Elkhart Lake, not a path nor a trail, but a road meant to race. In a town too quiet, the refuge we seek, Road America, the racetrack, the National Park of Speed.
In the beautiful Midwestern countryside, a 4-mile stretch of asphalt snakes through the fields and the forests. It's a racing town, Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Born during a boom of motorsports action across the country, Road America is one of the last untarnished road courses of the old days of racing. Retaining its original configuration from 1955, surrounding campgrounds and deciduous forest, this track earned the nickname America's National Park of Speed. It's fast, it's unforgiving, but undeniably beautiful. For the penultimate round of the 2020 Radenso Sports Car Challenge season, we head to Elkhart Lake with a recombined Grand Sport and TCR field, and we race towards the end of the season. Welcome to Sim TV. My name's Kyle Heyer, joined as always by Tom O'Gorman, 4-time winner in IMSA's touring car category. Tonight, our excursion across the country takes us to the heart of America, to a place where every race car driver would always rather be. Tom, welcome to Road America. 4 miles here. It's absolutely a beautiful day for racing. We are finally recombining our categories after a long season of splitting them up. Now all of the drivers will be racing at the same time in 2 8-minute races, or excuse me, 8 lap races, be about 20 minutes long each, back to back. So multi-class action once again on Road America.
And that really is the storyline for me. We're back to multi-class action, and the Radenso Sports Car Challenge really launched at the peak of quarantined sim racing, which meant that we got such a boom in the classes that we had the opportunity to separate them out, have separate races for each category, and it's produced some of the most spectacular racing, let alone sim racing that I've seen in a long time. But as real events have started to kick up, and some of our drivers are starting to go back to their real race cars, we've recombined the admittedly thinned out fields a little bit. So this week we have approximately a dozen cars in both classes, and they're going to share Road America, which is really a good place to have that happen because it's 4 miles long. There's plenty of space out there.
There sure is, and this racetrack, as I mentioned earlier, is really beautiful. It was constructed in 1955, so it's got that classic road course racing feel, kind of snaking through the natural terrain. It's in a relatively small area. The Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin has a population of about 1,000 people, so a very small racing-focused town, very similar in many ways, Tom, to Watkins Glen, which we're also intimately familiar with. 14 turns here, 4.048 miles. It is a long course, and that means that there is a lot of opportunities to make mistakes.
And it really gets a reputation of being a speed track because a lot of the straightaways are so long, but in reality, it's a downforce and momentum track over speed. So what's interesting is the TCR cars, which are the slower category cars here, we'll talk about that in a minute, actually do really well here in overall speed to the GS cars. So sharing the track, while there is plenty of space, may get interesting as the fields blend together a little bit towards the end of these two races. But like you said, it's a really cool track, works its way from kind of fields down straightaways into the forest. It always feels like it's going somewhere, and it presents a lot of really cool racing opportunities, both sections where you can go side by side for long periods of time, sections where you pucker a little bit, just like we're looking here at the exit of the kink, and then some really great long braking zones into tighter corners that always present that kind of traditional passing zone that we're looking at here, for example, down in the Canada corner.
Absolutely. We'll take a moment to thank our wonderful sponsors that have been with us for all this entire season. As it started a few months ago, of course, Radenso Radar, the title sponsor of the series. Radenso Radar offers windshield and hidden installed radar detectors with optional laser jammers. Radenso is known for having the best false alert filtering, so you get less annoying false alerts caused by blind spot monitoring on cars driving around you. Later this year, Radenso is releasing Radenso Thea, the world's first AI-powered radar detector that plans to eliminate nearly all false alerts, plus will have an open API for creative apps such as a track data and timer for track days. You can visit radenso.com to check out more. And of course, thanks also to Lazy Rocket Vinyl Produce. You can message Lazy Rocket on Facebook or Instagram and mention SimTV for 20% off your vinyl products and orders. So Tom, as we're going to take a look here in a moment at our categories, but also the racetrack itself. And I mentioned 4.4 miles around this racetrack. It all starts with a run down into turn number 1, and in just a minute we'll take you to a lap guide to show you a lap around here, Tom. So I would like you now to walk me through a lap at Road America.
One of the longest straightaways on the track, turn down into turn number 1. It's one of the fastest points on the track as well. It's a really, really fast, kind of deceivingly fast right-hander that kinks into turn number 1. A decent passing opportunity with the long straightaway drafting down towards turn number 3 now, which is another decent passing opportunity. It's a downhill run from turns 1 down into 3. And then the other longest straightaway that kind of gets that reputation of being a speed track from turn 3 down into turn number 5. One of the best passing opportunities anywhere on any racetrack. But then we hit this rhythm section from turns 5 up to turn 6 under a bridge, a little kink at turn 7, down to hurry downs into turn number 8, and then into that fabled carousel that takes you into the forest, entering at turn 9, exiting at turn 10, and into the daunting kink, which is absolutely single file, one of the scariest corners that you'll drive in a real car and even in sim racing. That leads you into Canada corner, a great passing opportunity on the brakes once more, and then the run up the hill out of the forest through turn 13, kind of decreasing braking zone in turn 14, up a steep hill back to start finish.
And we'll take a look at our car categories for this evening, the first of which, of course, is the Grand Sport category. Now joined not only with the Cayman Club Sport GT4, but also the BMW M4 GT4. New car. There's only one driver running that car tonight, but power 400 to 450 horsepower. Different engine platforms. Of course, the Porsche and BMW, very different in platform. Again, weighing about 3,000 to 3,600 pounds. Pretty heavy boys in comparison to our touring car category, Tom, which you're very familiar with, having driven this car and won in it before.
Yeah, much more modified from their base car. You see the Cayman and BMW are a very fast platform to start with. The Audi is not so much. So this car is a front-wheel drive touring car, more dependent on the modifications done to it and the downforce done to it. You see we have wider body with more aerodynamics to this car. And this car really comes alive in the sections when your steering wheel is turned or when your brake pedal is applied. The touring car shines. And these cars produce really close racing, as it is spec still with just the Audi.
So we're going to head down to the racetrack here as qualifying has just begun. If you want to follow along in real time, you sure can. We've got live timing available at simtvbroadcasting.com/timing, so you can follow along with your favorites at home on your own. And again, you see on the left-hand side of the screen the ticker, the class colors, the Grand Sport cars, shown with the black background on the number, and the TCR cars with the white background. And we have everybody getting on track here, Tom, as they have 10 minutes now to lay down their best time. And it's going to be very important, I think, to qualify up front, because this track is also seemingly very narrow because of the high speeds that you're carrying.
It definitely drives narrow. It isn't realistically that narrow. You see just how wide the track is looking at Dan Nyman coming into turn number 1, but it drives narrow. And like you said, there are those moments where you think maybe I shouldn't go for that move, but there is room for it, and it always produces great racing, great drafting. I'll be really curious to see, as you mentioned, the BMW GT4 coming into the iRacing service. It is definitely kind of blanket statement determined to have been still slower than the Cayman, and there you see Christopher Lapras, the only driver choosing to race that car tonight. He was actually 4th fastest in practice and only 7/10 off of Dan Nyman, and Lapras was certainly one of the faster drivers in the Cayman, but I would say that that's kind of within the noise of where he would have been anyway. Although the BMW, having only been out for about a week and a half, drivers say it goes through the front tires a little bit harder. It's just not as fast as the Cayman, which has a full 13-week season in iRacing's season underneath it so far.
And you see, there's a couple of drivers that snuck in here at the last second. I thought we might see some other drivers bail to the M4, but I think literally the only driver out there in it is Christopher Lapras. I also believe that he owns one of those cars in the real world, Tom, so that might be one of the reasons why he is in that car tonight. Of course, we've got our touring cars out on track as well, and we've got a very strong field. Of course, points leader Eric Mickey, Tom, has been winning races left and right in this number 88 Bombshell Racing Team car. I would look at him as one of the favorites tonight, but you cannot count out Elias Roman. He's been very fast all throughout practice.
Yeah, Mickey has 5 race wins on 12 starts. The other driver that has been very, very strong is Andrew Pallotta with 4 wins out of 12 starts. But Elias Roman, fastest in practice, and it's only by a couple of hundredths of a second over Andrew Pallotta. But I was looking at the bigger picture, knowing that these touring cars have created such incredible races, top to bottom, all season long. All 12 races have been spectacular. The top 10 in practice are barely a second apart. Call it a 1.1 second gap for the top 10. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't do a whole lot of watching on GS tonight, just because these TCR cars are so good to watch race.
And this is a great racetrack for racing. I think it lends itself with these long straightaways and the hard braking zones. There's a lot of opportunities to make passes that other racetracks might not have, and it's so beautiful as well. I think we've had a lot of conversations in the last couple days about how excited I am to get to go here for the first time in September, but we've got the first times on the board, and Evan Schickel is the second one across, but Paul Darling goes to the top of the board with a 217.9, and maybe this is the driver we should be watching in Grand Sport, especially with the absence of Ken Halseal tonight.
And that's definitely a storyline, as Ken Halseal had he led most of the season in GS. Paul Darling just took that over, the points leader in GS, with some unfortunate luck from Ken Halseal in race number 12 of the season. That was race 2 at Spa a couple of weeks ago. But I'm impressed. Paul Darling just now matches that 217.9 is the nearest makes no difference as fast as he went in practice at 217.92. So Dan Nyman was able to go a little faster than that in practice, but Darling is coming out swinging. And with Ken Halseal not here, it's really Darling's championship to lose, as Riley Thompson, the car on your screen there, the 56 car, is 3rd in the points. And he is the closest driver to Darling who is in attendance tonight.
A couple other drivers to mention. Jackson Robillard has experience in the Global MX-5 Challenge Series in the real world, so he's had a few laps around here in a race car, so he's familiar with the course. We've also got Ryan Kristoff here tonight in the number 46, and he's actually working on transferring this livery over to his real race car, his CRX, Tom, and I've seen some images of that come through the social media interwebs, and I'm really excited to see that car on track.
Kind of a throwback to the Bill Elliott 1987 Ford Thunderbird, which we now have at iRacing, and it is so much fun to drive. But he's taken a break from doing livery work on his real car and doing it for Bill to come out here and drive the TCR car. And a bunch of these TCR guys have had such great races. Kristoff's really worked his way towards the front of this TCR field a couple of times. Sits 5th in the points right now. And looking at TCR points, Eric Mickey, who has been the epitome of consistency, especially once we start to drop a couple of these races. They dropped 3 of 16 races in the total points team. Mickey's definitely going to have a big points lead, but between Pallotta, Roman, Lavender, Kristoff, Carwile, all those guys are really, really tight in the points. And if you look at practice, it was Roman, Pallotta, Herbst, Mickey, Robbins, Gritzko, Lavender, Lupfer, Carwile, Tessum, and Kristoff that were all within about 1.1 seconds, and that's the top 10. So these guys are going to have a great race tonight, coming through turn 14 to complete his 2nd flyer right now for Kristoff.
Up onto the front straightaway, we'll have a look here. He doesn't actually have a time recorded that was legal and enough for him to actually record a lap. So this time across the line, we'll see what it's going to be. He has to improve on a 2:24.0. It's going to be a 2:24.050. That will put him ninth, which is probably a little bit disappointing. I think he wants at least one more lap, and he should get one more lap with just about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in qualifying at this time. So he heads through turn number 1. We've got about 10 of our Grand Sport drivers already qualified. Randy Bader Jr. is on track. Alex Barroso in the 15. Another driver we haven't mentioned yet tonight, Tom, but he has been up front and battling for race wins ever since he joined the series, and you definitely can't count him out tonight either.
Certainly a driver who is a factor, and he doesn't have a clean lap in the books yet, but they get 4 attempts at it in a 10-minute window. Realistically, that's probably, I agree, 3 laps that they're going to complete tonight. But while we were looking away, Dan Nyman goes to pole at a 2:17.8 by about a tenth over Paul Darling, and Zach Buchanan is keeping himself in the mix third right now over Chris Lapras in the M4. Be looking for Riley Thompson to go a little bit quicker if he gets another run in the books. But looking back to TCR, Eric Mickey has nipped Elias Roman for the pole by 0.02 of a second. So it's practically tied on pole for TCR with Kyle Herbst and Andrew Pallotta right behind.
And 92 thousandths of a second's pretty tight, and for the GS cars, and 21 thousandths of a second between Eric Mickey and Elias Roman, so very tight there. Caleb John Lavender is out on track running a qualifying effort right now. Looks like he's got his first 2 sectors that are in the green. He's got a time recorded. We'll see if he can finish out this final sector and jump up somewhere inside the top 5. And again, I'm so excited. I think the Grand Sport race will be good, Tom, but I think you're right. The TCR cars have been the ones really putting on the show lately. Think back to Spa, the last round we did over a month ago. Those TCR races were elbows out all the way to the checkers. I think we'll see something very similar here as Caleb John Lavender comes across the line. Not really what he needed, a 2:28.2, so a little bit off pace for him, and he won't get a chance to run another lap at speed.
Yeah, that's tough, having basically no time. Actually, that was a dirty lap as well, so he's going to start at the very back along with Benson Tai, who has no lap time in the books, but the rest of the TCR field have a lap time in the books. Barroso got one in as well, goes P5 at a 2:18.7. So it's basically the class of the field. Nyman and Darling are in the 2:17 range, and then we have the next 5 drivers with Buchanan, Lapras, Barroso, Thompson, and Schickel all in the 2:18s. And I think going back to what you were talking about with the way these cars race and how the TCR races have really been incredible races, the GS races have had some really good racing and also some really intense kind of what I would say as a driver is they may not be the most fun to watch, but they're the most intense in the car, because you're basically having to put in your best lap, qualifying lap pace every single time. And that comes down to the way these cars race, with the TCR cars really drafting very well off of one another. They have a harder time separating from one another, where the GS cars don't draft as well off of one another, and they end up kind of in these trains rather than drafting up alongside and really racing one another, if that makes sense.
So a field's going to line up on the front straightaway, and we are going to get a pace lap around here, which is going to take a few minutes. We got plenty of time to roll through the starting lineup. We'll do that in a little bit here, but take a look at our weather. It's not cool by any stretch of the imagination. 110 degrees Fahrenheit on the racetrack, Tom. That means that lateral grip is going to be at a premium, especially on cold tires. But with a warm-up lap this long, you should be able to weave and get some brake and tire temp into the tires here before you come back around. And turn 1, as we take a look down, it kind of funnels down. That pit out makes you want to, we've seen a few times, even in the stock car races, where drivers will go out to the right because they see some more pavement out there, and then it funnels right back down before you hit turn 1. So this first lap going to be very interesting and intriguing to see how it goes.
It can be tempting to do that, and the track conditions, that is hot. 111 degrees now is the track temps are still rising with the sun baking the surface here at Road America. That is very, very hot. The good news is for these drivers, the iRacing service has been going through pretty significant updates lately, and one of the fixes that they've made is that the Porsche Cayman is a much more drivable car on its quote-unquote cold tires. It's nowhere near as extreme as we saw at the beginning of the Radenso Sports Car Challenge, which was pretty much right after that car was added to this service. So that is not nearly as much of a factor now. The car's much more drivable on the first laps, and that's not to say it's not still challenging, but it's probably 60-70% improved from where it was before. TCR cars, not as big a change. What'll be interesting to see is the Christopher Lapras car, the BMW M4, how that car races against the Porsches. I haven't really seen that happen yet. I know it's a faster car in a straight line. It's a little bit heavier of a car. It's a rear-wheel drive front engine car instead of a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car. So it's just a different kind of wild card thrown into the mix there.
Well, I think there was a lot of discussions about the BOP, and there was actually a lot of questions of whether or not this car was going to get added to this series based on concerns when iRacing releases a new car. And this is true of the real world too, is every time you have a new car join a series, you want to make sure that they're balanced as best as possible. And it seems like from the initial impressions that the M4 was actually the slower of the two cars. So Lapras qualified okay, so maybe, again, there's a little bit of driver mod in here as well, Tom, but I'm really curious to see how this car stacks up against a field of Caymans.
And in my other reference point really is the IMSA iRacing Challenge series, which uses the GT4 cars. There was actually a BMW M4 on pole in that race, and it was a Porsche Cayman that came out on top for the win. So I think they're kind of within the noise of each other. And the car that was on pole was a BMW factory supported car, so they had some help to make sure that it was quick. The other good news right now is there are even cars in the GS field, which means Eric Mickey, who is your pole sitter in TCR, will start on the preferred and accurate side for the green flag here. All
right, let's roll through our starting lineup here on the front row this evening. It's going to be Dan Nyman in the number 48 and Paul Darling in the 155. Tom, starting on that first row. I'll have you take him through the next row on back in row number 2.
Zach Buchanan will start in the third row. A great start for him. And then Christopher Lapras in that yellow BMW will start fourth.
In row number 3, Alex Barroso in the number 15 rolls off in 5th. Riley Thompson in the 56 starts in 6th.
Evan Schickel is always fun to watch. He's got 7th locked in with Jackson Robillard alongside him in 8th.
Starting in 9th place, Anthony Montello of Lazy Rocket Vital Produce. He starts in 9th with the number 24. Kevin Zhu starts 10th in the 243.
And Francois Bru starts 11th with Eric Mickey alongside him. Tony Chow, I think, will start alongside him based on moving up, not having a qualifying time in the books.
Yeah, of course. So now we're going to run through. This is done by overall order, of course. So it's going to be Eric Mickey and Elias Roman on the front row. Then in row 2 in TCR, Andrew Pallotta and Will Robbins. Then Kyle Herbst and Peter Short. Max Lupfer, Christian Gritzko, Ryan Carwile, Sarah Tessem, Ryan Christoph, Mitchell Welker, Caleb John Lavender. And I think that is going to be it. No, there's one more Benson tie back there as we roll through the rest of the field here. We do have a little bit more cars than I thought we were going to have when we first loaded in here, Tom. So we've got just shy of 15 in each category as we head now through the carousel. And this is a very high-speed area. Going to be balancing on the edge of grip here. The TCR car is going to be very planted, maybe trying to get the car upset to get it to rotate. The Grand Sport cars, though, rear-wheel drive on both these platforms on cold tires could get a little bit sketchy, especially if you did the tires in the grass on corner entry or exit.
It certainly can. And going back to the thinning fields, all of the guys are here. The factors, all the people who have really been the people to watch are here with the exception of Ken House-Seals. So I think we're still going to see as high a quality racing as we have had this entire season. This is the first reintroduction to multi-class racing in the Radenso Sports Car Challenge. Looking forward to Daytona International Speedway as a series closer, which will be not only multi-class, but an endurance race.
And we'll be racing into the darkness there as well. So a day-to-night transition, a 1-hour endurance race. That's coming up as the final round of the season. Thanks again to Radenso and Lazy Rocket for sponsoring the season as we head now through Canada Corner, one of the most picturesque, we'll try that again, one of the most picturesque corners in motorsports. It's absolutely gorgeous down there, but when you're at speed, you're not going to notice it as they come through 13 and 14. The pace car about to peel off. Dan Nyman on the inside of that front row in the number 48 car. He's been working hard. Excuse me. He's been working hard to get one of these race wins. He's got Paul Darling lined up alongside him as the field works through the final corner. 8 laps on the board, just shy of 20 minutes. We'll do it twice tonight at the National Park of Speed, Road America. A 4-mile twist and turn through beautiful Midwestern Wisconsin. They climb the hill towards the flag stand, waiting for the green flag to fly. There it goes, racing again in Radenso Sports Car Challenge at Road America. And immediately, Zach Buchanan goes middle, 3 wide, up to second place from the second row. He's going to challenge Nyman into turn 1 at the race start.
And Nyman went really early. They were full throttle almost at the exit of turn 14, and Buchanan was not caught sleeping. He went straight alongside, right behind Nyman, but now Paul Darling goes with the over-under. He's going to take second place back and almost challenge for the lead. The rest of the field pretty much single file, with Lapras in the BMW holding on to fourth. They're tracking out of turn number 3 as the TCR cars come up towards the green flag.
Yeah, green flag for Eric Mickey. He's on driver's right. A very good start for him. The outside row, nowhere to be found. They've already tucked into line, so pretty clean start here as the rest of the field's going to fan out as the GS leaders head into turn number 5. A big scrap here. Look at them fanning out into turn number 5, a hard left-hander.
Well, Buchanan's in super deep. Is he going to make it? Yes. Nyman keeps the top spot, but Buchanan around the outside of Darling. Lapras still in this mix too. Darling and Buchanan cannot get away from each other, and now finally Darling clears the nose of that 40 car as they sweep to turn number 6 into the kink of turn number 7. The more these guys battle, the more Nyman's going to be able to just start to pull away.
And that's all he wants right now is for those drivers to get distracted with each other as we, well, look at Lapras to driver's right on Buchanan. If he could stay outside there and have the inside run into the carousel, but can't do it. So they're line astern now. There's some damage, maybe it looks like, to the right front of the 40 car. So he's had a little bit of a hit there. Sideways is Elias Roman into turn 5 as everyone in the TCR field gets down there. There's a car off. It's Gritzko in the number 19.
Yeah, it's really easy to get wrong. A lot of front-end damage on the 19 car of Gritzko, the Vantage Esports car, and he came in hot. That was actually Max Lupfer was already having an issue, so it looks like maybe Ryan Carwile was involved as well, as here's the 19 down on the brake, super deep into the back of Lupfer. Yeah. It's just really unfortunate. Missed the braking point entirely there. Luckily for most of the rest of the field, they got away with it, but just a big mistake from Gritzko there on lap 1.
Yeah, that was really, that was unfortunate for Lupfer just to get caught up in that as the rest of the field. Now, we're still on lap number 1. That's how long it is around here. Our front 2, that's Darling and Nyman, they lead the way into the final corner, but Nyman's feeling the heat from Paul Darling in the 155, that yellow and black car in second.
And both of these guys have been on a tear lately. They've really dedicated to the quarantine time into the iRacing service. Both Nyman and Darling have been kind of dominant in every series they've tried to take part in. And Nyman really hit his stride in the Grid Life iRacer series with the Porsche 911 Cup car. Darling was always there as well, but Darling really found his stride in these GT4 cars through the rest of this series. So it's not a surprise to see either of these guys towards the front. And what's going to be fun now is now they can focus towards each other. Interrupt my own thought to say I think the damage on the back of Nyman's car might match the damage on the front of Buchanan's car. So those two, there it is, the damage on the right rear of the 48, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're going to put the puzzle pieces together and see what fits. I think that's what's happened. Really strung out nose to tail. I would take you back to the TCR field, but they're relatively sorted for now. I think their scrap will come towards the end of the race. Right now, though, Buchanan is looking to driver's right of Paul Darling, and Paul Darling goes driver's right of Nyman. So side by side for the race lead into turn number 5.
Oh, and Buchanan's going to try to go with him, try to take over the second spot, but he's not going to make it. Nyman super wide. Look at the run that Darling has, and he still has Buchanan up the inside.
He was wide at the exit of 5. That let Darling come on through. Buchanan follows him as well. 1, 2, 3. Darling, Buchanan, Nyman. And Buchanan cut Nyman. No brakes as they came out of turn number 6. And look at Lapras knocking the door for 3rd.
Yeah, look at the chunky BMW trying to shove a nose in there. Can't do anything with it around the outside of turn number 7, which is really tough. Riley Thompson has been shuffled back a little bit by Alex Barroso, who's clinging on to this breakaway at the top 5. But the more these guys race, the longer guys like Barroso, Thompson, Robillard, and Schickel are going to stay in this fight. They're now side by side. Look at that, Robillard, and that is Thompson sweeping through the carousel. It's so tight there.
Meanwhile, you see TCR, they've kind of sorted themselves out, so we just want to show you that their line is starting. You're not missing anything there as we go back through the kink at full speed. Is that going to work? Barely, as Robillard takes the spot away from Thompson. He lines back up in 6th, Thompson 7th, Schickel 8th, and Anthony Montello in the Lazy Rocket car sits in 9th.
And that's from the outside that Robillard came around Thompson into the kink, and that's an impressive maneuver. You see a little bit of a breakaway for the top 5, who have now gone single file for a couple of corners, which is a break in the action from what it had been. But Darling at the top after the mistake from Nyman, Buchanan in the middle with Lapras and Barroso still all within about a 2-second gap of each other.
Yeah, Barroso, it's caught right to the tailpipes of the 183 of Lapras, so really it's now a 5-car breakaway. Thought it was only going to be a 4-car fight, but Barroso found his way back. So the race leaders head up the hill. This is absolutely spectacular stuff here at Road America. Across the line to complete lap number 2, Darling, Buchanan, Nyman, Lapras, Barroso, then Robillard, Thompson, Schickel, Montello, and Chow, your top 10. And looks like they've sorted things out for the time being. We'll jump back to TCR. Mickey, Roman, Pallotta, and Herbst, and Robbins rounding out your top 5. That's a 5-car breakaway there as well.
Yeah, and those are the 5 that were not affected by that incident with Gritzko and Lupfer. This is a heavy scrap right behind Sarah Tesson with a lot of front end damage on that car. Another Advantage Esports car, Mitch Welker, sweeps across the nose. That was really tight.
Saw Benson Ty get way sideways. He had some contact, I think, from Brian Carwile, but they saved it. There's Peter Short in the 022. Big scrap there for what is ultimately about 8th place in category. Take a deep breath.
Yeah, we have a moment of a breather, but back at the front of TCR, it's definitely a draft battle. Eric Mickey looking very clean, tight, and tidy with Elias Roman behind him looking a little more ragged, and then Pallotta and Herbst are running nose astern. Those guys practice together for pretty much every time they get on iRacing, so those two are very familiar with one another. I have no question in my mind that they are on the same Discord server, talking to each other, working their way through this race, and going to do everything they can to work together, but they still have Will Robbins, who's another guy. All three of those guys really are probably working together, friends in real life, autocross guys from real life, and they're trying to find their way around not only Elias Roman, but up to Eric Mickey.
See Elias Roman, he had the back end of that thing hung out on the entry to turn 5. These cars, they have basically all the front tires doing everything on this car. They're braking, accelerating, steering, and when you get into the corner, all the weight shifts forward, especially in the downhill turn into 5. That makes the rear end very, very light on that car, Tom. It makes it very sideways. Ryan Carwile's off in 5.
And he can't quite catch a break. He was collected in that first incident as well. He takes a big ride down into turn number 5.
It looks like
this is that heavy battle with Sarah Tesson, gets into the back of him and sends him for a ride.
Yeah, that was Mitch Welker, I believe, in the 76 car. Oh, no, excuse me. That was Tesson in the 70 car. So that was Sarah, the guy in the back of Carwile, sent him for a loop. No damage, no significant damage from that collision, though, so they should be able to continue as Mickey's starting to build a half a second gap on Roman and Pallotta. So how much can they work together here, Tom, if they want to keep Eric Mickey in their sights?
It's going to be tough, especially watching the body language of Roman's car. Like you said, the back end is swinging around a lot. He looks like he's working really, really hard to keep that car where it is on track. And Pallotta, one of the fastest drivers in the TCR car everywhere we've gone. Roman's been a little more hit or miss, so I almost wonder if Roman could let Pallotta go by and then use the draft to get up towards Eric Mickey. At the front, though, look at Lapras in the M4 up to 3rd over Nyman.
The Lapras is coming. Last time by, he ran a 2:19.011, which was the fastest lap with the exception of Zach Buchanan, who went a 2:18.985. So that's the quickest race lap we've seen so far in the number 40 Project 2 car. So I wouldn't count him out. And I'm not sure if Darling is completely done yet. I think he's got two very hungry drivers coming in from behind him. One of them a Cayman, one of them an M4.
One of the trends we've seen this season is that Paul Darling, when he gets to the front, he's really hard to pass. He's just very, very confident in leading these races, and he's been almost all the races that he's won have been races that he's led the majority of, as Tony Chow goes for a dive under Anthony Montello into turn number 6.
Yeah.
But I really think once Darling's at the front, that's a dangerous place for him to be, versus somebody else, a bunch of these other guys, when they've won races, they've come from positions behind and taken that win from 2nd or even 3rd.
Really tight behind Lapras right now. That M4 struggling a little bit through the rhythm section, as you called it. It seems like the Cayman feels a little bit lighter on its feet through some of the more transitioning sections from right to left to right. But right now he's got Barroso and Nyman tucked right up underneath that rear wing as they head into the kink.
And you can see just a little bit that BMW is going to pull away from these guys down the straightaways, and that's down to the balance of these cars. The BMW, a worse handling, faster, more powerful car. It's marginal, but it's significant. That BMW just a little bit faster down the straights. It's going to be a little bit worse on the brakes, as you see Lapras has a little bit of a hard time getting that car woed up and pivoted for Canada Corner. But the BMW is going to race really well because of that. It's going to be faster down the straightaways at a track like Road America that makes you hard to pass.
The battles have sort of fizzled for now as Darling leads Buchanan by 0.6 of a second. For 3rd, though, still a very intense fight. Nyman looks to the right, and I'm not sure Lapras is going to get there in time to defend. So drag race now on the front straight, but the M4 is going to win this fight.
Yeah, almost easily. As soon as you see the Porsche tucks out, and now just with the draft, he starts to come up towards the back of Lapras once again. Will he get to the braking point and have some overlap? No, he backs out of it. And Lapras is going to live to fight another corner at least.
Got a car off. It's Francois Brou at the back of the Grand Sport field here. We'll go back and take a look at exactly how he got himself in this position. Could just be getting behind on the steering, run a little bit wide, get the bump here, or maybe it's on entry. In a track just loose on entry there, Tom. Very easy to do that.
Yeah, I got on the brakes a little too hard, a little too wide, and had a bunch of weight on the front of the car. The back end with that mid-engine comes around quick if you're not on top of it for the 69 as Brew now down into turn number 1. I was going to point out in TCR real quickly, whoa, it looks like Barroso's gotten around Nyman as well. Nyman falling the wrong way.
Yeah, he sure did. He got him around for 4, so that will move Nyman back to 5th after sitting on pole. And you mentioned TCR. Here's Andrew Pallotta, Kyle Herbst, nose to tail, literally inches between them as they come down the front straight. Look at Will Robbins having a look at Herbst.
And it's definitely Roman holding this field up. I think the cars behind him have the pace to go back up to Mickey, or at least run the same pace as Mickey, but Roman just doesn't have that speed on a longer run. They're only halfway through this race. We're working lap 5 of 8, and I have to wonder if it's either the driving or the consumption of tires going on that 99 car that are allowing Eric Mickey to drive away, and that's a nightmare for Pallotta and Herbst and Robbins, because they just can't drive through him. They got to get around him, and the longer it takes, the longer Mickey gets away.
Well, here comes Pallotta with a run to the inside, and Elias Roman does not go defensive. He will move more towards the center of the racetrack, but Pallotta's going to have a look to the inside lane. Going to tighten down to about 3/4 of a car width, but just enough space as they touch on corner exit. Now the run up to turn 6. It's so hard to keep momentum on the inside here, Tom, but Pallotta's going to have to back out and try again.
He almost tried it into turn number 6 too, and that's really tough because that corner is faster than you think and also blind. So it can be really challenging to get up the inside, but it's going to be another couple of corners with Roman at the front. As Pallotta trying to find any way he can to get around them and try to get back up towards Mickey.
Back to the front in Grand Sport. Zach Buchanan has not left Paul Darling's tail. Here he is. He's got a great run up onto the front straight behind him. A bit of a mess up for Lapras at the exit of turn 14. Going to go defensive. Nyman goes left. Barroso goes right. Gets blocked by the big yellow M4 as they come across the front straight. But look at this for the lead here, Tom. Here comes Buchanan to the outside.
Buchanan's had flashes of speed this entire season, but he hasn't had the best luck. And now look at this fast and at the front, challenging
Nyman's
Darling.
off, way off into turn number 1. He's going to slam the wall hard as a tire goes flying. More cars off. Thompson spun around. Big impact down in turn number 1. And for our pole sitter, that's it. It's over. For the race lead, Buchanan's going to cycle back to 2nd, but a big issue for some of our front runners into the first turn, Tom.
Yeah, we had like 4 cars involved in that. I'd be curious to go back and take a look at what happened, as it was Nyman, Lapras, Barroso, Robillard, and Thompson all involved in that one in some way or another. See what happens as Nyman just in too deep tags Lapras, and Thompson gets collected. He was trying to go up the inside. But that was just not planning ahead as well as he could have that time for Nyman.
There's a look.
I think the big beneficiary of that might be Evan Schickel.
Yeah, look at this. Lapras spins to the inside, gets Barroso involved. You see, wow, the tire already going on the 56, or excuse me, on the 15 of Barroso, but Thompson backs around into the gravel trap. A big mess into turn number 1. That was a scary accident at well over 150 miles an hour down into turn number 1. But it looks like for Nyman, that'll be game over, day over.
Yeah, very unfortunate. And we do invert somewhere between the top 10 and full field of these groups. So as long as Nyman joins race number 2, he may inherit another shot at this. But we called it. It was Schickel, actually. Looks like he had an accident.
Yeah,
but
this is just now.
Running third.
This is just now. I think this was at the exit of turn number 8 and slipped right here. He's going to get the concrete on the driver's left and knock the mirror off that car.
It's unfortunate because he was running third as he had gotten through that turn 1 incident pretty cleanly. Now back to 5th with minimal damage on that car.
Jump back to TCR. Mickey is pulled away by 1.2 seconds for 2nd. Roman, Pallotta, Herbst, 2, 3, 4, and Will Robbins in 5th. So they're still having a great scrap back there. But coming back to 2 laps to go, Tom, I think they're going to start to lose Eric Mickey unless they start working together.
And they only have, like you said, 2.5 laps at this point. Mickey looks like he's rallied just a little bit. He's not feeling quite as much pressure from Pallotta, but still looking like he's just not quite as clean as maybe what Pallotta could do. It's really hard to do anything with this run that Pallotta's got, and if it's kind of down to the Pallotta's faster through the corners, but they can't figure out something to do with him down the straights, it's just going to be kind of game over for all these guys sitting 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Eric Mickey's got a big smile on his face, leading the championship points, most race wins so far, and he's kind of cruising to another one at this point.
Kyle Herbst putting pressure on Pallotta for 3rd and kind of forcing the cork out of the bottle as they come into Canada corner. A little bit wide goes the 99 of Elias Roman, but lots of curbing on track out to catch you there. As for the race lead in Grand Sport, look at Buchanan. He is there, and it's just a big send from a long ways back might get it done, but that's a big high-risk maneuver.
It definitely isn't. Darling is not one of those drivers that leaves anything on entry under the into the entry of these corners under the brakes. So if you're battling for 8th, 9th, 10th, and the guy in front of you maybe isn't extracting everything out of the car, you can make a move like that. But for the lead in a race like this, it's just going to be really tough to pull off. Looking at third, though, Jackson Robillard is on his way to his second podium of the season. He's done a great job to avoid those incidents and is kind of cruising a lonely third right now as Lapras and Barroso both recovered pretty well from that incident with Nyman to be 4th and 5th.
Robillard having a pretty good day, up 5 spots. You see Lapras and Barroso still kicking up dirt on track out as they come now to basically a lap and a half to go for them. As we check back in, it seems like Darling is beginning to stretch a lead on Buchanan. Buchanan might have pushed a little bit hard and burned some of the tires off, but I'm not sure we're totally done in TCR because Mickey's lead has actually fallen about 3/4 of a second in this half a lap that we've done since we last looked at them.
And going back to talking about the tires and the updates that this game has seen, Roman's in deep, gathers it up. That was a risky move to be in that deep with someone like Pallotta right behind you. But going back to the tires, the TCR cars do have some tire management, even on an 8-lap race involved. Whoa.
For the lead, here comes Buchanan to driver's left down into Canada corner. He got in there and had a look at Paul Darling, but wasn't able to complete the pass. And he's sideways now as he comes up the hill. That was really tight. Let's go back very quickly and see how he found himself here. Was it a mistake through the kink? I think it was. Look at Darling. It almost like he missed a shift or something, but obviously that's not something that would happen.
No, he got wide in the kink and just dragged a couple of tires, had a big pucker moment and had to check the car up, and that allowed the pretty beaten and ragged 40 car at this point up to the outside. He couldn't do anything with it, but he's now closed that gap down. I think the 155 has the pace. As long as Paul doesn't make any more mistakes, he should be okay. But that's going to be encouraging for Buchanan to see that he's got the 155 right there. Looks towards the inside, maybe a little bit down towards turn number 3.
I'm not totally sure we're done yet. We've got a couple straightaways left with long drafting areas, and Buchanan a little bit wide on the exit of turn 3. That was a crucial corner that he needed to nail if he wanted to have a run at Darling here, Tom, but I don't think it's over yet. Darling made that mistake once. I think that's a little bit of blood in the water that Buchanan is smelling as they head down the backstretch for the final time. White flag in the air here at Road America.
And the draft doesn't really kick in until they pass under that Sargento bridge. Buchanan shows the nose to the inside.
Oh, he's there! He's there! Oh, that was so tight to the inside. He's got overlap on the 155 as they crest the hill for turn 6, but Darling re-clears him. That was as close as it was going to get behind him. Barroso and Lapras side by side for a moment.
That BMW proving hard to pass once again. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this car come into the category, but pounding off the curbs for the lead. Buchanan ragged through turn number 8, trying to get a run down towards turn number 8, and he's deep on the brakes. Whoa, almost up the tailpipe.
Oh, he's wide.
And now he's too wide. He's going to make that mistake, and that, I think, sealed the deal.
Well, that was closer than I thought it was going to be. He gave it a valiant effort to run down the 155 of Darling. But looks like Paul's got about 0.8 of a second of gap on him now, but that was really, really exciting there for about a half a lap. Meanwhile, look at Riley Thompson and Kevin Zhu. This is for 9th in class.
Ooh, back in TCR, Andrew Pallotta having a look up the inside of, he's deep,
they touch.
And he's going to door him. They touch, and he's going to put Elias Roman off into the dirt. Kyle Herbst goes through, has a run towards Pallotta. Not going to go anywhere with it, and that was really, really optimistic, I'll say, from the 14 car down into turn number 5.
Yeah, that was, I mean, he elbows out last lap, white flag, but look at Zach Buchanan hanging it all out through 13. He has given it everything he can as they come through 14. Now the run up the hill, not quite going to be enough, but an amazing effort by Zach Buchanan, driving the race there. Paul Darling did an immense job. He didn't crack at all. Checkered flag at Road America. Race number 1 goes to Paul Darling by about 2.5 of a second.
Yeah, golf claps to the 40 of that one. That was pushing so hard through that entire race to cling onto the back of the 155. Just couldn't quite get it done. Thompson, I'm surprised, did not have as good a race as he would have liked, sitting there in 10th, but back to TCR. These guys are still not done as Herbst is still within striking distance of Pallotta. If Pallotta makes a mistake, Elias Roman, heartbreak, and going to be looking to the stewards for that one after this race, I have to imagine. But right now, Eric Mickey cruising to the checkered flag. Herbst has one more opportunity to get a really good run through 14 and maybe draft up alongside Pallotta to the finish, but that's going to be really tough to pull off as he's super wide through 13.
Yeah, he gave it everything he could. Used every little bit of racetrack that he had through 13 and 14. Now checkered flag for Eric Mickey. He's had wins here and there and everywhere as he comes up the hill. And the dominant season continues even in the penultimate round. Eric Mickey wins the race by just about a half a second over Pallotta, who got down the inside of Elias Roman into turn 5 and pushed him off track. Pallotta second, Herbst third, Robbins fourth, Roman in fifth. The drama there, I'm sure, will be tangible as they hit pit lane here. I do want to go back, Tom, and take a look at that maneuver down into turn 5 to get a bit of a better look at that and see if that was really as egregious as we initially thought, because it's possible that it wasn't quite as bad as we had first imagined. So let's go back and have a look here from onboard Pallotta.
Yeah, Pallotta has a really good run, and there's just a car width on his left. It's super deep on the brakes, and he goes for the move pretty late. And unfortunately, I do think that is pretty much as egregious as we thought. I had my own game window up watching that happen as we were watching the GS battle. And that's kind of within the noise of somewhere between a dive bomb and a punt, in my opinion. Catches just in front of the rear tire, turns the front wheel drive car a little bit sideways. Roman puts his foot down and gets it straight, but that's going to allow Herbst and Robbins to get around him as well. So it's an easy mistake to make, and unfortunately not as harmless for the guy that gets the punt like there. But Paul Darling gets his 6th win on the season, the winningest driver in GS by double the number of Ken Halsila, 3 wins. So the 155 turning this into a dominant season towards the end. Zach Buchanan, a great run for 2nd, and Jackson Robillard coming home with his 2nd podium of the season in 3rd.
And Christopher Lapras in 4th in the M4. Made that car work. It was a big chungus, Tom, but it stuck out there and finished in the top 5. Barroso 5th. Chow, Schickel, Finney DeCuna with an 8th place result. He kind of snuck up in there at the very end. Kevin Zhu back in 9th. Riley Thompson in 10th. We'll move on down to the rest of the top 15. Montello, Brew, and Reddy Bader Jr. And then here is our TCR results. Eric Mickey, Andrew Pallotta, Kyle Herbst, your podium in this category. Will Robbins, and of course Elias Roman getting shuffled out of the 2nd place position at the very end of that race. Caleb John Lavender 6th, Christoph 7th, and the rest of the field here. Mitch Welker back in 9th, not the run he was looking for, involved in a couple of collisions, and of course Nyman with the big wild high-speed accident into turn number 1. That's why they have gravel, and that's why they got a big soft tire barrier there to catch cars that go in that fast.
Certainly, and now what we get to look forward to is the inverted race, and I don't know if there have been any changes in the rules for the series based on the car counts, but we could see both of these fields 100% inverted for race number 2, which will be great news for guys like Nyman and Gritzko, who had dramas in race number 1, but that's going to be that much harder for guys like Darling and Mickey to come back through the field. Certain drivers have really excelled at that. Barroso's always one to watch for that one, and other drivers have struggled, so this will be a fun race 2 to watch in just a few minutes.
I think we saw an absolutely epic fight, probably one of the best in the season that we've seen in Grand Sport, although VIRs was hard to beat. But a great fight between Darling and Buchanan. We'll get to watch a rematch here in about 10 minutes time, so stay with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes for race number 2 of Radenso Sports Car Challenge. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sim TV and the Radenso Sports Car Challenge. It's the penultimate round of the season. We finish things off in 2 weeks from Daytona Beach, Florida with a 1-hour endurance race into the darkness. The sun is beginning to set in the picturesque town of Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, as we now head to the 4-mile Road America for the last race of the evening. And I'm joined again by Tom O'Gorman for our final race of the evening. We just had one of the best races I think we've seen all season long in race number 1 between Paul Darling and Zach Buchanan in the Project 2 Cayman. We get to do it all over again for another 8 laps TCR and Grand Sport all over again, Tom. So can we top what we saw in race 1, or is it going to be even better?
I hope it's even better, and picturesque it is. Look at how beautiful this place is now with the updated graphics and the updated lighting. All this just looks fantastic. And like you said, we had a great race 1. I feel like we say this is the best race ever after every one of these Radenso races in one way or another. But as always with race 2 in the Radenso Sports Car Challenge, we're going to turn things on its head a little bit and invert the field. The random draw this week, number 10, P10 will start on the pole for race number 2 here, and that means in Grand Sport, Riley Thompson inherits the pole alongside Kevin Zhu to take the green flag.
So warm up now, just about 4 minutes left in this, so we get a chance to look around the beautiful sights of Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and the sun is setting in the sky, and it's kind of cast this beautiful golden hue over the racetrack. And again, we'll get down to the driver's level here in a minute to see if the sun is going to be an issue at all, especially for users in virtual reality. That typically can be a problem, having the sun in your eyes, but at least from ground level, it doesn't immediately seem that way. And you mentioned our driver, Riley Thompson, will be a pole sitter in this race number 2, and we'll ride on board with him to get kind of a sense of what things look like from the driver's point of view. As you see, into the carousel already, and we'll go back a couple seconds here. Actually, this is, into turn number 3. And we'll look on board. You see the sun is sort of still high in the sky, but as it gets lower, especially to turn 6, I could see that being a problem, Tom, getting the sun in your eyes as the sun sets below the horizon here in just a few minutes.
And even more so than the lighting, you saw the track temperature, 81 degrees. That's over 20 degrees cooler for race number 2 than it was in race 1. And that kind of drastic change in just 10 minutes real time is a really significant difference in track surface and the grip that's available. And I think one of the cars coming at us right here in turn number 6, that big BMW of Chris Lapras, is one of the cars that will benefit from that. It's a heavier, worse handling car than the Cayman, which every other driver has elected to drive tonight in GS. But we saw Chris Lapras really was successful with that BMW in how it makes speed here at Road America. It's really fast on the straightaways. It's hard to pass, and it races really well. We
saw Lapras wheeling that thing into a top 5 result. Some of the drivers didn't really get a fair shot at running for the race lead because of issues down into turn 1. I'm thinking about Max Lupfer in the 688. I'm thinking about, I think it was Benson Tai that was kind of behind all that at the end. And Sarah Tussum and Mitch Welker had significant damage. I don't see Welker back in this session. He is here, so he's in the 76. We'll see if he can get a top 5 run. I think he's got the pace to do it, but had issues early on. Peter Short in the 022, didn't see a lot out of him in TCR. We know he's fast. So I think it's only a matter of time before he can get himself out front. Of course, Christian Gritzko, kind of the trigger in that big multi-car pileup into turn number 5 in the Vantage G sports car. There has been races where he's had speed. We'll see if he can take advantage of the 10-car invert. I'm not exactly sure where he finished in race number 1, but he might be able to take advantage of it and come up towards the front.
He finished 14th in TCR, and the other driver I don't see present is Dan Nyman, who had that incident going into turn number 1, misjudged his braking zone and got into the back of the BMW of Chris Lapras and kind of triggered a 4-car incident that ended up taking himself out and impeding a couple other drivers' race's progress, which allowed Jackson Robillard to get up into the podium. But I don't see him present, and it'll be interesting to watch if some of those other guys who ultimately got a better starting position because of that incident, Riley Thompson, the big beneficiary, will start on pole in that 56, the orange Cayman. Because of that incident, now he gets the opportunity to capitalize on race number 2. And looking back at TCR, again, top 10 invert, Ryan Carwile will start on pole in TCR.
That's going to be really interesting. We haven't really seen Carwile get a fair shot at the race lead in a while, so starting him up front will be interesting to say the least. We'll also have Eric Mickey starting at, back in 10th, so deep in the field for him. And I'm just really curious to see Paul Darling and Zach Buchanan coming from the back. We saw how they did in clean air out front racing each other, but now when they race the rest of the field, how much of a wrench will that throw in their plans to maybe pick up a sweeping victory at Road America? Only Paul Darling could do that. He's got to come from 10th position on the grid. There's a lot of good cars in Grand Sport and TCR alike, so we'll see how it does. Max Luper, as I mentioned, in the wins, Audi RS3. Kind of got himself turned around in turn 5 on the opening lap of race 1. See if he can jump up here and play around a little bit at the front of the field in TCR.
Yeah, I didn't get himself turned around so much as he just got turned around. Unfortunately for him, he's going to start 13th after that punt that he got down on lap number 1. But Ryan Carlisle, thinking back to COTA, actually, race number 2 at COTA, which was round 1, he inherited the pole on the invert, and he basically led the entire race with a big gap, and he was slowly reeled in by a couple of other drivers, got thrown off on the very last lap by getting kind of his rhythm interrupted, and ended up finishing 4th or 5th in that race. But he was able to control almost that entire race from the pole, having inherited the pole position. So it'd be interesting to see how he handles that this time. And Mitch Welker will start alongside him. One of the other cars that'll be fun to watch is Ryan Kristoff starting 4th. And Ryan always does really well, especially under these inverted races where he gets the opportunity to start a little further up the field. Looks like we don't have the grid entirely sorted properly, as a TCR car is in front of a GS car there.
Oh. All right, well, I got
not too bad, but maybe sorted by overall finishing position.
For sure, I got to restart the timing and scoring here in just a moment so we can get the starting grid rolled on through. But, so the live timing, if you're watching at home, will go away for just a minute as I fire this back up. Ignore the Windows sounds as we get this fired back up. However, so the sun's setting, it cooled the track temperature. I think that's a more significant change than I think we've acknowledged. You mentioned 20 degrees, that's going to change the handling. But as you sort of alluded to, it's actually going to shift the balance of the race in the M4's favor, I think. And it was already good with Lapras running up towards the front before. I think it gives him a distinct advantage for race number 2.
Potentially, and he will start 7th on the grid, having finished in 4th on race number 1. So he's got only a couple of cars that are really big factors, in my opinion. Riley Thompson being one of them, Evan Schickel, Tony Chow, who has taken a little break from iRacing, but it really found his stride in the kind of heavy quarantine time. And then alongside Lapras will be Barroso, and Barroso's always a firecracker in these invert races. Looks like the fields have sorted themselves out with that one TCR car that had ended up in front of the GS car, Anthony Montello, coming up the middle of the TCR field, and now sorting themselves out for that split start. But we're looking at the front row with Riley Thompson on pole, and alongside him, Kevin Zhu on the first row. Oh, there's your graphic. Sorry, I jumped the gun, but I'll take the first row. Then Riley Thompson on pole and Kevin Zhu in second. And there is Tony Chow, just talking about him, in 5th. Alex Barroso, both of those cars going to be factors in this race, starting on the 3rd row together. Zach Buchanan and Paul Darling had that phenomenal battle. They start side by side in 9th and 10th for race 2.
So looks like that's going to round out the rest of the grid. So Riley Thompson comes on through, and he's sitting on pole here for this second race. We'll see what he can do. Kevin Zhu up front, Tom. We haven't seen him up here yet.
No, and he's always been very consistent, I think, in that 243 car. So he'll be one of those drivers that is not necessarily easy to pass, but his pace isn't there when it comes to drivers like maybe Buchanan, Darling, Barroso catching him. But he's one of those drivers that could absolutely kind of throw off the flow by just being really challenging to pass. And I think he's actually been in that position before. Another one of those guys is Evan Schickel in 33 right behind him. So some of those guys are drivers that ultimately the overall qualifying pace maybe isn't there. But they've had some super strong showings in these races in the past, and it comes down to whether or not Paul Darling can pull off charges like we've had in the past. Barroso is another one of those guys that has a lot of success doing that. I don't remember necessarily Zach Buchanan having been in this position before, where he was up so far that he was kind of inverted towards the back. Jackson Robillard's another one that he only got his podium in the first weekend at COTA based on the invert. So this will be kind of a completely different makeup to a race than we've seen this entire season.
Field heads through Canada Corner up into turn number 13. Picturesque Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. I said it right that time on the first try. As we come up 13 and into 14, the sun setting in the background. We will end in daylight conditions, a pretty short race, 8 laps, but it's going to be chock full of sports car racing action. Thompson, Zhu, DeCuna, Schickel, and Chow, your top 5. Pace car is going to peel off, and it's a long drive up a mountain under the bridge as we head to the green flag. The last race of the evening in our penultimate round, we head to Daytona in 2 weeks to finish it all off. Thompson and Zhu bring us to the green flag, racing again from Road America.
Thompson delayed the start just a little bit longer than last race, but he gets a really good jump. And look at this cluster. Now Evan Schickel with a huge run up the inside of Zhu, almost up to second right away. And look at Barroso. He's always great on these races, and he's up almost battling for third.
Side by side for second. Schickel muscles his way by Kevin Zhu. A little bit of dirt flying in the background as they come out of turn number 2 and into 3. And look at Barroso with the start of a lifetime up into third place by the time they hit 3.
He does this every time, and actually Darling's doing a great job too. Buchanan went for a little bit of a ride exiting turn 1, and Lapras not getting the start that he wanted. He's down outside almost the top 10 as he's now just getting alongside Darling once more. But TCR pole, Andrew Pallotta flashing lights up the middle. It's a breakaway for Carwile.
And so far, so good. I think everyone's going to make it through here nice and neat and tidy as we go back to the lead in Grand Sport. Thompson pulls away by 0.7 of a second. The rest of the Grand Sport field did a very nice job getting through there very cleanly. Darling has a look up the inside of DeCuna. Door gets slammed, and looks like Buchanan's following Paul Darling right all the way through, but now got Tony Chow to deal with as we head back to TCR. Now the run to turn 5.
Perfectly clean so far. I'm going to knock on my wood desk right here, but Carwile has the 22 of Peter Short going for the inside down towards turn number 5. They're side by side in the braking zone, and it's a little bit of a gap back to Welker, but he's going to think better of it. Whoa, a huge dive from Tessum up the inside. Does she make it through clean?
I see her dropping down the order. Looks like she'll go a little bit wide on corner exit. Look at Max Lupfer jumping up to 8th place. So he'll move up a couple spots. Car a little bit wide. That's Will Robbins in the 35. Now to the inside of Elias Roman. They get turned.
Yeah, Roman gets a turn from Robbins. They were side by side to that little kink, and up ahead, we didn't see it on camera, but Buchanan was in the wall exiting turn number 8 in GS. But back towards this battle between Lupfer and Pallotta, Robbins now runs wide. They're going to be 3 wide. 2 cars in the grass.
That's not going to work.
3 wide. They touch. Oh, there's a tire wall there. Did they clear it?
I think they did.
They did. Wow.
Oh, Benson Tide's going to go off. That's going to be a long slide. He hit the gravel, and it's like not having any grip at all. Buchanan's day is over. We're going to have to go back and take a look at how this happened here. Tom, the second place driver from race number 1 comes into turn number 8. Right up underneath Tony Chow. Was there a touch here on exit? Oh, just...
There was a little bit. He had a checkup from Lapras getting a little bit loose, and then Tony Chow caught just the left front of that. Here from overhead, you're going to see he had a checkup. Lapras gets a little bit loose, and just kind of an awkward bump back and forth between those 3 cars, and it's going to end Buchanan's night in a heavy hit to that concrete wall. Unfortunate. Yeah,
and for some of these drivers, some days you're the bat, some days you're the ball, and it seems like for Elias Roman, he's been the ball today, getting knocked around everywhere, but you got to get those elbows out and get a little bit assertive, because I think it's clear that those guys aren't willing to play games back there, as we now have a very tight battle up in TCR. Carwile, Short, Welker, Kristoff, and Gritzko, your top 5.
Look at these guys cresting the hill from behind, though. Gritzko is 3 wide for a moment with Herbst and Pallotta still hunting. Eric Mickey's now up into this battle, too. So these guys are battling. That's for 5th in TCR. We have 4 cars up in front of that, and these guys are still working their way towards the front. It's now Herbst deep on the brakes in front of Gritzko. Takes the apex, and he's going to go through.
Kyle Herbst up to 5th place. Gritzko now going to try to cover on Pallotta. Pallotta, I think he's got overlap as they head into 3. And right behind him, race 1 winner Eric Mickey following all of this. Where does he go? Or in the grass sets, Elias Roman gets the right side tires off.
Yeah, Lupfer got a little bit loose as he tried to run on the outside of turn number 3. And again, these guys are only still battling for 5th up in front. The guys who started on the first 2 rows got a big breakaway, and I don't know really how that happened, but Carwile, Short, that is Welker, and then just behind is Kristoff. All 4 of those cars, a clean breakaway from the front, which is not typically what we see in these inverted races. Whoa, Mickey
Yeah, that was a bit of a touch there between Mickey and Gritzko, but I think, you know, a little bit of contact is expected. These cars are pretty wide, and this track can get pretty narrow, so I think a little bit of contact is expected. As long as everyone walks out okay, I think it's no harm, no foul. It's just hitting the quarter panels is not the place that you want to be hitting. So looks like Grand Sport for now is sort of sorted. Thompson leads by 1.1 seconds over Alex Barroso. I don't think we're totally done with that battle yet, but for now, the fight is for 5th place in TCR as you look at Max Lufer having a look at Eric Mickey.
And this is that coming together of drivers who were inverted towards the back versus drivers who started towards the front. A little bit of chaos where Jackson Robillard, Montello just clears him.
This is a big tank slapper. Yeah, here's a look. This is coming up through turn number 13, right in front of, it would be Kevin Zhu. Just gets out wide in 13 and big tank slapper moment. And that's Porsche just spinning out on you, Tom. It happens quick.
Yeah, holy cow, and a bunch of these drivers get through clean. Everyone gets through clean, really, but now it's Tony Chow coming alongside Finian D'Acuna. Paul Darling has made some progress, finally. I'm not surprised to see Thompson breaking away from Barroso. I'm not surprised to see Barroso up so far so quick. Schickel has always been a strong performer, and now Darling finally clears the majority of the field, and Lapras is still working his way with him as well. Kevin Zhu, like I said, he's tough to pass, doesn't always have the raw pace, but he's holding his own, still holding down 5th in GS.
Field streaking underneath the Sargento Bridge on the back straightaway. And Darling up to 4th place. Does he have the pace to run down Schickel, Barroso, and Thompson? He's got over half the race left. I don't think it's out of the question, but he's got a lot of work to do. It's 6 seconds between him and Riley Thompson. He better get on it if he wants a chance. Meanwhile, back in TCR, things are tightening up. Carwile, Short, Welker, Christoph, all nose to tail.
Christoph hunting just a little bit in the mirrors of the 76 car of Welker, so he's on the move just a little bit, and those guys have, what is that, about 4 or 5 seconds, as now Pallotta and Herbst are side by side tracking out of turn number 3. Those guys racing for position, but they're racing for the wrong spot. That's 5th place, guys. You got to get towards the front.
And they're trying to figure out which one is going to be the ultimate driver to push forward to go run down those leaders, but they got to get sorted out quick. I still think there's time left in this race, but I don't know if there's a lot of time left with a field as fast and as orderly as the front 4 are right now. Carwile, Short have been pretty respectful and stayed in line so far, so they might be able to run away from that second group, starting with Pallotta.
I think now that Pallotta's up in the front, he's probably the fastest car in that group, and we'll see them stay clean for just a little bit. And honestly, what's shaping up now with 4.5 laps left is a barn burner finish for TCR once again, because I think it's going to take just about all that time. Whoa, Carwile goes for a little bit of a slide, keeps it on the track, but just barely. But going back to what I was saying, I think it's going to take most of the race for Pallotta to get to this group at the front. I think he's going to get there, and that's going to turn this race into potentially even a 10-car battle at the front.
He's got 4/10 on Peter Short in second. At the front of Grand Sport, I thought Barroso was going to run down Riley Thompson, but Thompson's been very consistent and was almost a full second quicker than Barroso last time through. So he's got something figured out in that number 56 Simsa Esports car and is still pulling away from second and third in line. Behind him, though, looking fourth, Kevin Zhu still there, and the daytime running lamps on the BMW glowing golden in the evening sun here as Lapras rides in 6th.
Poetry, that was beautiful. Yeah, the BMW is just cool to see something different out here, to be honest. So much more than spec Porsche, and he's dropping off the back just a little bit of Zhu, who's also losing Darling, and just as I said with Pallotta, I think Darling will get up to Schickel, but it's going to take him pretty much the rest of the race to get there, as he, I expect, will be somewhere close to about a second a lap faster than the 33 car. We'll have to see how that pans out, but he's now only 3 seconds behind.
Look at this.
TCR at the front, there's a battle for the lead.
Here we go. Here comes up the inside. That's Peter Short having a look for the race lead into turn number 1. The 71 on driver's left has to give way. Into the lead goes Peter Short at Road America.
Cool looking paint scheme on that car too. Just now noticing, but a really clean pass, and he did a good job to make sure that they didn't lose too much time with that exchange. And you see that they didn't lose much of that gap that they had back to Pallotta, and Pallotta's naturally going to catch them just a little bit. Again, these top 4 finished 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th in race number 1. Carwile now coming back on the back of Peter Short, and Welker goes defensive for Christoph. They're going to go 2 by 2 down into turn 5.
Side by side for the race lead. Carwile wants it back. Welker sees an opportunity to get by Peter Short. He's got overlap now as they run up to turn number 6, but Short's going to try to move a little bit left to defend second place. Welker has to back off for now. Christoph just trying to figure out where he can fit his Audi RS3, but not a hole big enough right now at this moment.
And now this type of exchange is what's going to lose them a lot of time. If they start to fight through corners, that's going to bring Pallotta and company into the battle really, really fast. So far, they haven't lost a whole lot of time, but I think what we're seeing right now is Carlisle, who have finished 10th in race number 1, is theoretically and potentially realistically one of the slowest cars on the track right now in TCR. He's starting to hold these guys up just a little bit. Peter Short wants through.
Short really showed his strength on the front straightaway, but wasn't able to hold it. I think that shows us, Tom, that turn 1 maybe isn't the best passing zone because you can get passed again very quickly. So maybe you want to wait till turn number 5. Maybe you want to wait till Canada corner, but I'm not sure if you want to take that risk because any little mistake will pull you out of that chance to win the race. So are you going to sit in line like a Spec Miata, or are you going to go for the lead now and try to hang on to it?
I think he's just got to go for it and try to hang on to it. And while we said Road America drives a little bit narrow, the reality is that you can actually hold the outside or the inside in a lot of these corners. And sometimes the outside is really rewarded because you're leading on just long straightaways a lot of times. So if you can carry just that little bit more rolling speed through the corner, even if you're covering more distance, you end up in front by the next time you hit the brakes. So you see Carlisle, who got the outside, was able to come back at him. Short now runs third, and Christoph, who is hunting just a little bit, they still have a healthy gap back to Pallotta, but it's shrinking fast.
And you see the draft pulling those cars forward and into turn number 1. Again, trying to get a nice shot of that blimp shot. It's hard to get down into turn number 1, but Short steps out to driver's right. Not enough of a run to get alongside, but Welker might be willing to push that 22 car past the race leader. They've got now 3 laps to go, or make it 4 laps to go this time through, so there's still time left in this race. Halfway through now, at the front of the field in Grand Sport, Thompson's lead has begun to shrink just slightly, 1.2 seconds, as Barroso tries to make inroads on the 56. But the battle still for the lead in TCR.
Looking back just a little bit in TCR, Pallotta has stayed at the front of that group, but now Herbst has shuffled quite a bit of the ways back. Mickey's in front of him now. Gritzko is held on, so it's a little bit of a different order from 5th to 10th, but not a lot of change. I'll also note, while we don't need to cut to it, that Paul Darling has pretty much caught Evan Schickel, so he's charging hard. But I think this battle for TCR is going to be one to watch all the way to the very, very end.
Max Lupfer and Kyle Herbst, this is for 8th place. And Herbst just doesn't have the pace. He's got a little bit of damage on that left front. I can't imagine that's hurting him that badly, but Lupfer able to pass him. That's for 7th. Montello slow. This is at the exit of Canada corner, so he'll run off the course. That's 10th place. See what happened to him to get himself in this position. Oh, contact with the 98 of Jackson Robillard.
Yeah, I'm going to say that was equally, if not more, Montello's fault. He started to fade a little bit towards the center of the track and just caught himself on the nose of the 98, and Jackson hadn't really done anything wrong up to that point. He was established just a little bit, and Montello got himself, watch this as he starts to kind of move towards the middle of the track.
Yeah, that's tricky.
It's a really tough spot to be between those two.
For sure. As we jump back briefly to 3rd place, you mentioned it, Evan Schickel feeling the pressure from Paul Darling. Darling has a run, and he's eaten into 2 seconds of the race lead on Barroso and Thompson. But Thompson was 0.3 quicker than Darling last time through. They come out of turn number 3, and Schickel makes a mistake and moves Darling on through.
That's good news for Darling because he didn't lose a lot of time in that, and he might actually have enough time with 2.5 laps to go. Finney Nakuna goes for a ride, no harm, no foul there. But Darling, 3 seconds to go up to the back bumper of Barroso with 2.5 laps. It's going to be a tall order, but he may be able to even challenge for second. Look at this, I called it. We might end up with 10 cars battling for the lead in TCR. We're up to about 7.
As the field snakes down the front straightaway, 3 laps to go for TCR. The penultimate race of the season, the sun setting in Road America. The season is in twilight as Mitch Welker feels the need to get a win in the closing moments of the season. He'll have one more opportunity in Daytona in 2 weeks, but he wants one now, and he's 2 spots away from grabbing it as he runs right up on the rear tailpipes of the 22 into turn number 3.
And look at the rear of these cars just float on entry. You're doing all the work with the front tires. You're getting that rear end rotating. And I think Welker is going to be one to watch. He's had a nice, clean, tidy race. And Peter Short has been moving a little bit around in the back of Carlisle. Carlisle's found some pace. And now Pallotta on charge to get around Christoph, who's fallen off the back of that top 3. Deep on the brakes. This will probably be a nice, clean pass. Welker going for it too. Yeah,
Welker having a look at second place as Pallotta unable to completely make that pass on Christoph. Still has a nose tucked in. Looks like Welker's backed off of Peter Short, but again, turn 5, the pass there is not that straightforward because you can carry so much more speed on the exit of that corner that you can usually re-clear the guy that you're racing up into turn 6 if you're on the outside. So it's definitely not cut and dry pass into turn number 5.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about with just running the outside here. A lot of times is rewarded because you're going onto a straightaway. Now Christoph makes a little bit of a mistake, and they're going to go side by side through the carousel. No, Pallotta clears him, and it will tuck back in. It's worth noting Elias Roman has disconnected from the server, and I also don't see, oh, Kevin Zhu goes around. I also do not see Kyle Herbst towards the front of TCR anymore, so there was probably some drama as they were side by side on track at one point.
There was a wing land on the ground from Kevin Zhu. So looks like that's gotten cleared up now as the rest of the field comes on through. 1.4 between the Grand Sport leaders as they hit 2 laps to go. But I'm still watching Andrew Pallotta in this 14 car because he's fourth. He's got a lot of cars to pass, Tom, but those front three, as soon as they get scrappy, I'm not sure that anybody's out of this race. We saw how elbows out it can get at Spa. I'm not sure we've seen everything yet tonight as Carwile gets heavily defensive into turn 14 as they come to 2 laps to go, about 8 miles of racing at Road America.
And if you look in the background, the 2 blue cars of Eric Mickey and Christian Gritzko, I'd argue that they aren't even out of it at this point, and that's 6th and 7th. So they have a much taller order as they're coming up to 2 laps to go right now, crossing the start-finish line. But look at this, Peter Short with a run towards the outside. Can he make that work?
Run down into turn number 1, and he's clear of the 71 for a moment. Yes, he is. Welker tries to follow through, but he's off.
Oh, it's just a little too much speed, and he's going to bring that car back on track. Now shuffles Pallotta up to 3rd position, and he's going to have a look down to the inside of Welker for just a moment. He wasn't there, but he's filling the mirrors, and this is looking good for the 14. I got to say, he's in a really good spot right now.
This is dangerous. If I'm the 76 and Mitch Welker right now, I don't think I'm racing the 71. I'm racing the 14 car because the 71, I think Welker can get by him. Whoa, see the defensive, that was almost a block there on the 76, moving over on Pallotta to keep him behind. Now a little bit nervous on the brakes. Peter Short runs a little wide, trying to arc in the corner, but again, I'm not sure that if I'm Mitch Welker, I want that 14 behind me because he's already putting pressure on him.
Yeah, Mitch Welker's definitely feeling the pressure as he's moving around a lot on corner entry, and I don't know that that was fully a block. He might have been moving to look at Carwile as well, but it's definitely feeling a lot of pressure in that purple 76 from behind. Still not off the back of Carwile, though.
Oh,
Carwile,
he's getting desperate. The headlight gets knocked out. Both headlights get knocked out on the 76 cars. It's a good thing we're not night racing. Pallotta sees the opportunity, shoves the nose in. Not quite able to get the car inside there, though.
Mickey is in this battle now, too. We got 6 cars at the top for TCR.
White flag.
Tracking out of the carousel down towards the kink for the first time, or for the second to last time.
A white flag in the air for the Grand Sport leaders. 1.8 seconds, no battles there. Meanwhile, the TCR field streaming through the kink. 5 cars, nose to tail at a 6th. Eric Mickey has caught up to this group. Side by side for second. Pallotta drivers left, Welker drivers right in the purple car.
Pallotta's going to try to make that outside work. Can he roll just a little bit more speed? Whoa, Welker is in really deep. He's going to cut him off. They touch at the exit, and that's going to chuck up the 14 car. Now Christoph coming back at him. Eric Mickey found his way around Peter Short, so he's up to 5th, and Christoph sweeps around the outside. Christoph up to 3rd. Pallotta back to 4th. Mickey now has a look to the inside on Pallotta and doesn't get it done.
That was crucial.
On the front straight, taking a white flag.
That was crucial for Welker to use up Pallotta there. If you've got one mistake you're going to use up and say, oopsie, that's the one that you got to use up. He put Pallotta off in the gravel just enough, and now it's a 2-horse race for the time being. Welker tracking down the front straight. A huge run on the race leader, Ryan Carwile, now to the left. Drag race into turn number 1. White flag for the TCR leaders.
He's going to try it. Is he in deep? No.
Oh, he's wide.
It's a really tough thing to hold on to.
Oh,
But
he's got it.
And he's got...
Oh, they're still side by side here, Tom. He managed to keep it on the racetrack, but now Carwile's got drivers right. Christoph in behind. He's going to see the opportunity here. Which lane does he go with? Side by side at the exit of turn number 3. Now down towards turn 5. Pallotta licking his lips because he's in the fight now as it's a 4-horse race down the backstretch.
And Christoph picks Carwile to follow. Pallotta's going to go for a bump draft on Welker. Who's going to get to the apex first?
Oh, man.
Look at Mickey now going 3 wide. Holy cow, I don't know what's going to happen here. Everybody hit your brake points, please. Coming down to turn 5 for the last time.
Oh, nervous, little neat and tidy for everybody. Touch, the 2 leaders touch. Welker shoves his way past Ryan Carwile. He goes to the top spot for now. Here comes Christoph looking for second into turn number 6. He's going to use up the side of the 71 as well and have a chance to run for the race win.
And this is exactly what happened to Carwile at Coda. On the very last lap, he got abused and used up on the last lap and lost out to the podium. And looks like it's going to happen again as he's now back to 4th. Here comes...
Oh, Gritzko, big dive up the inside of Peter Short. Meanwhile, checkered flag for Riley Thompson by 1.6 seconds. No drama there. We're going to stay on the TCR battle through turn number 8 and 9. They touch side by side. Mickey gets a door from the 14 of Pallotta.
Kristoff doing a great job to hold on to the third position as Carlisle recovered beautifully from getting beaten up just a little bit through turns 5 and 6. They're going into the kink. Only 2 passing opportunities really left. Oh, a big brake check up, and they touch. He's going to go off. Does Kristoff leave him room to come back on? He does. Peter Short going for a huge ride, but back at the front, Kristoff side by side with Carlisle, and Mickey's going to pick the inside. Pallotta trying to follow around the outside. They're 2x2 into Canada corner for the last time. Welker's got this one sealed, I think.
He's way out front now by about a second. Make it 2 as they come up the hill towards 13. Look at this, 88-14, bumping and banging up the hill towards 13. Second place, Kristoff and Carlisle, they battle for position. It's podium that Pallotta and Mickey are going to fight over. Oh, they're together, 3 wide in the final corner. Gritzko gets into the side of the 14. Slide, Gritzko spins. Checkered flag for Mitch Welker. He's going to pick up a win at Road America. For second, Kristoff and Carlisle drag race to the finish line. Carlisle's got the run. Here they come. Checkered flag waving.
Carlisle's got it.
He's got it. And behind him.
And look at Lupfer comes up out of nowhere for 5th. Pallotta stays on the track for 4th. I put my arms up and bow to these TCR guys for that battle. As bumpy as it was clean, it was tight, tidy, and congratulations, Mitch Welker, for the win on that one. Holy cow.
Wow, that was insane. Mitch Welker, 3rd to 1st. He did everything he needed to do to get that race win. He used all the elbows when he needed to, and I think that you got to do it a little bit, Tom, because you can't run a race like that perfectly clean because you're just going to get used up by somebody else. So he did an amazing job. I do want to go back and look at the closing moments of that as they came through the final couple corners. The battle really behind, mostly looking at where Gritzko was as he came through the corner. Pallotta and look at this mess as they come up. Look at Lupfer making a pass in the grass at the exit of the corner and the run up the hill.
Yeah, and to be honest, as you said, you can't necessarily drive without your elbows out a little bit, but all the contact we saw was, in my mind, more or less fairly incidental, albeit maybe from a little bit opportunistic decision making, like we saw from Gritzko there, choosing to go up the inside and make it 3 wide in the last corner.
Watch this.
That's the kind of thing on the last lap. You got to just try, and look at Lupfer gets a run around the outside of multiple cars here, sends it up the inside of Short, and then around the outside of all these guys, and that's going to reward him from 9th to 5th.
He kept 2 tires on the track at all times. About just the shoulder of the right side, tires on the edge of the rumble strip, but it was enough to bring him 5th place by 27 thousandths of a second. That was an amazing, amazing race, an amazing finish. And at the front of the field in Grand Sport, we didn't really talk about it very much in the closing moments, but Riley Thompson, Barroso, and Darling, your podium. Whew, deep breath. That was fun.
That was spectacular. I'm proud of all these guys for putting on a show like that. That was great.
Is there any doubt that Road America is one of the best racetracks in the world? Is there any doubt that these are some of the best sim racers on the road racing side right now? That was spectacular. Thompson and Barroso had a nice clean fight. Thompson from pole goes off and wins it. Darling from 10th to 3rd. Chris Lapras finishes in 6th. Of course, Zach Buchanan with his crash early finishes in 13th, last in class. And then Welker. He did everything he needed to do, muscled his way past Ryan Carlisle, Kristoff, Pallotta. He got tangled up with a couple other cars. Peter Short led some laps, fell all the way to 7th in the closing moments. And Gritzko with a 3 wide dive up the inside into turn 14. That didn't quite work. He comes home 11th in class. And with that, we're going to take a very short break. We'll be back to talk to the race winners here in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back live to Sim TV and Radenso Sports Car Challenge from Road America, the penultimate race of the season. Here now with Zach Buchanan, the Project 2 number 40. Second place in race number 1, Zach, and it was very, very tight at the front of the field between you and Paul Darling. An amazing scrap, an amazing battle. Race 2 didn't go your way, but I want to hear about race number 1.
Race number 1 was really, really good for me. I'm really proud of how I did. I had a really good start. Dan timed his start perfectly for me, and I got a good run from there. And from there, it was just trying to keep up with Paul to the end, which was really hard to do. And I nearly passed him a couple times, but he made it really, really tricky.
We saw it really got pretty physical out there, especially in race number 2, but it seemed like you were just kind of the unfortunate recipient of some ping pong back and forth there at the exit of turn 8. Looking back, is that a position that you wouldn't have put yourself in, or is that just part of racing here with a field this tight?
That's just sort of part of racing. I don't think you guys caught it on the broadcast, but we were 3 wide going down the straight before then, and that already made the situation confusing enough. And then when Christopher got loose out of 8 there, I just had nowhere to go. It happens. I've taken him out of a race like twice this season, so I sort of owed him one, so I'm not too bothered about it.
Tom, anything for Buchanan before we send him home?
No, I just wanted to say great race 1 and ton of fun to watch, both from a show performance and then also from a obviously results performance.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how it went. Thanks, guys.
All right, Zach Buchanan, an amazing run in race number 1. That's going to do it for Zach. We're going to move on now to Riley Thompson, I think we'll talk to. Riley won race number 2, and Riley, race number 1 didn't quite go the way you wanted. You got caught up in a collision in turn 1, but race number 2 seemed like pretty smooth sailing. Walk us through the first couple laps before you broke away to take the win.
After that first race, and I don't even know what I was thinking in that mistake I made, just completely missed the corner. But I knew I had the pace when I had damage after that. Didn't really have draft, and I was actually faster than the leaders for 1 lap. So I knew I had the pace for a bit after that. And so it was just trying to make sure I didn't make a mistake like VAR and losing a win that I could have easily had.
And thinking about VIR, of course, that came down to the wire there. So when you see a guy like Alex Barroso behind you, you know how good Alex is. How nervous were you until you saw that checkered flag? And did you think he still might have a shot with you on that final lap?
Yeah, the whole race I was protecting my relative pretty much, probably more than my own windshield. But yeah.
All right. Hey, Riley, nice run tonight in the number 56 Simsa Esports car. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time at Daytona. We'll see you there.
Thanks.
Now we'll talk with Mitch Welker, who won in race number 2 in TCR, and it was a long time coming for Mitch. It was an amazing battle that you had there, elbows out, bumping and banging, and drove away from the chaos behind you in the closing moments. Mitch, walk us through race 1 because there were some issues there, but then race 2 where you had that amazing scrap for position and ultimately came home the race winner.
Yeah, for sure. Race 1, I qualified last of the qualifiers. That's the first time it's happened in a long time. I had no practice. So I'm like, all right, I'll just kind of fool around, maybe get a feel for it. They got 9th. That's all right. It's whatever. Everyone else pulled away. Not much I could do. Start, I think, 2nd in the second race. And then all of a sudden I'm in the fight the entire race. Sitting there 3rd, 2nd, swapping. Everyone's swapping around. And I don't remember who it was in that black and really colorful car that ran off at turn 1. And then it was really on. And I mean, I'm not overly proud of my bumping tactics, but I think because it's TCR and I haven't gotten a sports car win in a while, I figured, might as well make it happen now. So pretty happy with it.
Tom, anything for Mitch? I know you had a ball watching the TCR fight. That probably takes you back to some of the races that you had in this car in the 2018 and 2019 season.
Yeah, I was going to ask just from the driver's seat, what is it about the TCR cars that somehow for now 14 races on the season, we've had fantastic races, and you from the outside, it really looks like your raw pace almost doesn't matter for most of the time, and you just can kind of confirm that from going from not having practice and qualifying last to being able to win race 2. What about it is makes it that way?
I think it's very much a driver's car. So if you're a driver, you can drive the car, basically, I guess. There isn't, to drive it at a baseline level, there isn't, a whole lot more to it because it's a front-wheel drive car. You can pretty easily, bring it around. It's just adding that little bit extra spice of figuring out the right line, figuring out your braking and throttle inputs to get it fast, and then just taking advantage of opportunities when you can, And then having the slipstream down the long straights also really helped.
Mitch, a really, really solid run. A lot of fun to watch that. My heart rate is still going after that. So congratulations on your race win.
Same.
And good luck to you at Daytona.
Thanks very much. See ya.
Right, and now we're going to move on to Paul Darling, who won race number 1. It wasn't by a lot. It was only by about a half a second over Zach Buchanan. Got to watch a really good fight there, Paul, between you two. But what was it like from the driver's seat?
Yeah, that was an entertaining race. I was all over the place. I'm not really sure how to drive this new tire model Porsche yet. So I kept making a ton of mistakes. Zach would get a run. I'd have to defend like crazy. So it was a lot of fun, but definitely, I think a bit sloppy.
And then race number 2, you had to come from 10th place on through. And I think we saw the M4 of Christopher Lapras kind of be an interesting obstacle to get through that big M4 platform, kind of, as Tom pointed out, sort of in the way through the corners, but a rocket ship down the straights. What was it like racing that car? I know there's only one out there, but was that a different experience than racing the other cars around you, or pretty much the same thing, just a different looking logo on the hood?
Got 2 laps behind them in warm up for race 2. And that I knew I'd have to get back. I knew I'd have to get ahead of him really quickly at the start of race 2, because otherwise you can just get trapped. That thing is a rocket ship on the streets, like you said. It's very difficult to try and pass that thing, from what I can see.
Anything for Paul, Tom, before we wrap things up?
Yeah, looking at Daytona, so just based on tonight's performance, you have the most wins on the season, 6 out of 14 races. You have a almost perfect record for top 5s and a very clear lead over the championship with Ken Hausiel missing tonight. 2 questions. Is there any shift in approach or mentality for Daytona? And then do you consider that BMW for Daytona, knowing now what you learned tonight about how fast it is in a straight line, how hard it is to pass going into a big oval for an endurance race?
If I owned the Daytona, I mean the BMW, maybe I'd give it a shot, but I actually don't own it. But I don't think we can change anyway. But I'm just gonna stick with what I know and give it my all for the next race.
All right, Paul, thanks so much for talking to us. Congratulations on a 1st and a 3rd. We'll look forward to seeing you at Daytona in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for
Very much, guys.
Now, one more that was in here hanging out. It was Alex Barroso, who finished 2nd in race number 2. And Tom, I'll let you have this one, as Alex came up just 2.5 seconds short of race winner Riley Thompson.
Yeah, Alex, it's always fun to watch you, especially in race 2. It seems like you have this knack to come from rows 4, 5, 6, get up to the front really, really quickly. And I'm curious what the approach is on the night for that, and whether it's kind of casual that you get the rhythm going and race 2 hits the stride, or if there's something about the racing versus the lapping and turning in the laps and pace that gets you going and always ends you right here in a great result for race 2.
Sorry, I think voice kind of messed up there. Could you repeat that question? I want to hear at the end of it.
Oh, sure. No worries. I was going to say, we always see you here at the end of race 2, really strong performances, and you always come from rows 4, 5, 6 to end up on the podium, it seems like, in these race number 2s. Curious what the approach is, what the approach looks like for you coming into these races that always lands you here in race 2.
Yeah, that does seem to be the case. There's some super fast people in this group, so don't always have the outright pace, but do a lot of spec racing in the real world. So I think my racecraft is pretty decent. So sometimes that'll make up for that lack of pace. So I know how to kind of weave my way through traffic there on the starts, and that definitely seems to help because once you get the gap, as long as you've got reasonable pace, sometimes it's harder for even the faster guys to catch up. So I always really like those race 2s.
And looking to the championship, I hope you'll be able to make Daytona, but we've been curious about, having seen that BMW be introduced into the series, do you consider that BMW being as fast as it is in a straight line, going into an endurance race at an oval, and knowing that you're now kind of in a position to challenge for a top 3 on the championship with Ken Hausiel, Kurt Crum missing tonight, a big points gain on those 2 drivers to put you kind of in the mix with those 2, and Riley Thompson battling for right around 2nd behind Paul Darling?
Yeah, it's definitely going to need some testing. What we've all found so far with the BMW is that it doesn't have a whole lot of straight line advantage for the most part, but it really does struggle on the long run. Both cars are struggling with tires right now during the stint, but the BMW drops off a lot harder than the Cayman does. It really, really hurts those front tires being as heavy of a car as it is. So yeah, I think it's something we're all going to have to.
might have gotten pulled out, but I think that's going to wrap things up, I guess. Oh, he's back. Wait, where'd he go? Hold on. Disappeared. So I don't know what happened to him, but we got to hear from him a little bit. So at the very least, look forward to seeing him at Daytona here, Tom. But as the sun sets here at in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, what an amazing night of action we had here at Road America. This just makes me even more excited to go here in September for Grid Life Touring Cup. This is going to be an absolute blast. It's a blast in the sim. It's a blast in real life. I cannot wait to go.
Yeah, and I think very interesting notes right there at the very end, talking about tire management, talking about the differences between the cars, especially in GS, going into what will be our only endurance race of the Radenso Sports Car Challenge season at Daytona International Speedway's road course in 2 weeks' time. We're going to finally put a stamp on this one, having started almost 4 months ago, or 3 months ago, and it'll be a blast to watch.
All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here for Radenso Sports Car Challenge. We'll see you in 2 weeks on July 1st for the season finale, a 1 hour long endurance race at Daytona International Speedway with a combined field. We'll see you there for our last race of the Radenso Sports Car Challenge season. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.